Good afternoon, everybody. You've made it this far. I'm super proud of you all. Listen, we've got some amazing fireside chats for you once again before we get into the last set of breakout sessions later. Starting out with Christi Putman, Associate Director, Research and Development, and Damon Frost, Director, Beauty CIO of Procter & Gamble, and they will both be interviewed by Jana Eggers, CEO of NaraLogics. Please give them a warm round of applause.
Please.
So we've got the tough job of keeping you awake after lunch. So we've worked hard to prepare for this so that we do that. So hopefully all this hard work will pay off. It's been a couple of years now.
It has. It's gone quickly.
that we've been working together. I thought it may be a good idea to start with some introductions from you all so people know the perspective you're coming from.
Sure. So I'm Christi Putman. I'm a chemical engineer by training. So if you know, I've been doing beauty care products, formulated products for about 27 years now at P&G. And being a chemical engineer, I think if you had told me I'd be sitting up here right now, I would have had a good laugh, but here I am.
So Damon Frost, been at Procter & Gamble for 22 years. In IT, spent actually all of my career in IT, most of my career in enterprise systems, but the last 2 years in beauty. And it's been a lot of fun. And I probably would have had the same chuckle if you'd asked if I was going to be on some panel talking about a consumer app called Olay SkinAdvisor.
So let's go back to the beginning. Christi, we started working together, like I said, almost 2 years ago now. And you all had this great idea for the Olay SkinAdvisor, and they didn't come to us and say, we need AI. They came to us with a problem.
Right.
Do you want to talk some about
Sure.
how you formulated, P&G is such a great products company. There's so much we in technology have learned and can continue to learn from building products, but this was a different type of product for you.
For sure. Yes. So a little over 3 years ago, we had started seeing increasingly, like every day, these like beauty applications launching that were diagnosing consumers and making personalized recommendations to them. And in typical P&G big company arrogance, we would kind of look at them and say, oh, those are terrible. They're not accurate. Consumers are never going to believe that, but they just kept coming, and it was obvious this was not going to go away. And so we decided we better figure out how to play in this space. So we actually got a pot of money and an extremely passionate group of people to set out on a path to create diagnostics and personalized solutions for beauty care.
So one of the things I want to point out, because we've shared some of the pot of money story, even though they're a very, very large company, they don't get large pots of money.
True.
So it's one of the things that I appreciate, that you all started out small, and it was a small team, and it was a few individuals.
That's true, and mostly chemists and chemical engineers, so it's kind of like, well, what do we do now? But we did, first we said, well, what problem are we really trying to solve? And that was pretty easy. And that's that the beauty industry has been disrupted. Consumers don't really want to go to Walmart and pick their own product off the shelf anymore, at least not as much as in the past. And while we were growing like gangbusters in the early 2000s, around 2008, the wheels kind of fell off. And we started losing droves of consumers to .com and specialty retail because consumers were just overwhelmed and confused, and they didn't know what to choose. And so they were looking for help in selecting the right products for them. So we knew we wanted to create a tool that would help her. We knew we have great products if we just get the right products in the right consumers' hands. So we set out to create a tool that would help her do that.
And one of the other decisions that you all made early on that I appreciated when you brought us in, you said, we're not doing a downloadable app. There's too many barriers to entry there. And so AI has to work just in the web browser on a phone. it can't be something where we require there to be an app and a lot of that infrastructure around it.
Right. So we knew we wanted to do something with image analysis. We've been pioneering in the image analysis field for over 25 years. We invented the machines that are used in dermatologist's office, but we wanted to democratize that so that everybody could have it in the palm of their hand. So we set out to see, well, what can we extract out of a selfie? So we knew we had corporate R&D folks dabbling in machine learning, and they were already trying to predict skin age from a selfie. So we partnered with them to basically train a model that could predict skin age and also identify areas of the face where heat maps where she needs maybe some extra help. And we started with just a simple rules-based algorithm that delivered personalized solutions, but not very personalized. And that's where we knew we needed help. We really felt like if we found the right partner, we could create much more sophisticated algorithms to give her a much more personalized experience and recommendation.
So Damon, maybe you can jump in and talk about how you all went through a process of build versus buy, because some of it you built and some of it you bought. And I often look at AI is a great place to do ensembles. So find places, some that are specialty and some that don't even exist, like what you did with VisID.
Yeah, I think this was an area where we were doing a lot of learning and a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out what was the right model. And this buy versus build was on multiple fronts. So as you would imagine, a company like Procter & Gamble, we don't have 500 developers at our beck and call waiting to go develop the next app. We have a kind of a ecosystem of partners that we use to develop apps, to run our apps, and da-da-da, but this was a little bit more specialized, and we felt like we needed to have a little bit more control and more agility. So partnering with NaraLogics, we also wanted to bring some of that development in-house and build it ourselves. We had the R&D folks creating the models for the visage. And so we were trying to put all these components together and that's why we decided to bring a lot of the development in-house, because of those components, and we wanted those entities to be able to work together fairly seamlessly and quickly. And so far, all right, at least in the beginning, it worked very well. We were able to launch. People were pretty happy. We actually had, we started out in a model where we had outsourced most of it, and then the next version, which was kind of a bit of a breakthrough, we had insourced the development.
And so who wants to talk about some of the results?
I can. So we've had about 5 million visitors globally now. We're in over 10 different countries. And what we found is people who do SkinAdvisor have 2 times the conversion rate. And when they're buying, their basket size is 30% higher. So we've had really incredible results with SkinAdvisor. And then what's even more important to an R&D person is we have created the personalized experience she's looking for. We did a survey among consumers who have been through the SkinAdvisor tool, and over 90% of consumers will agree that they believe that it's a personalized regimen for them, and more than 90% of consumers were still using their regimen after 2 months. So, we've proven that if we can get people to the tool, they will convert, they will buy products, and they'll buy more products than if they had come to Olay in any other way.
And just to build on that a little bit, and she talked about the conversion rate. One of the choices we also made around the same time was to start selling Olay direct to consumer, right, on Olay.com. And so we could actually see the exact impact of how SkinAdvisor, what the regimen choices were, what the basket size was, and then what the conversion rate was. And therefore, we have more and more data about our consumers, and we can use that data to make better products. We can use that data for our retailers, and we're still doing that, but it was the overall ecosystem of data that's coming as part of this SkinAdvisor experience that it's adding value.
I do think that's one of the things, working across customers, oftentimes they start with one challenge. So in Olay SkinAdvisor, there were 2 challenges that fit AI. One was the VisID and identifying, places that needed support, and we're doing well as well, in addition. And then the other was the specialty problem of your regimen recommendation, because it's not just a product recommendation, it's actually a combination of products that need to complement each other. But you all then also took it a step further, which often people don't see at first that what Damon just brought up, which is new product development and how you're working on that as well and even continuing that further. Did you want to talk some about?
Well, yeah, it helped us identify big holes in our lineup and also products that aren't really being needed by consumers. So it's really helped us pare down our lineup so that we're not dealing with quite so many SKUs, and it's identified areas where we are underdeveloped, like sensitive skin products. Like 53% of millennial women claim to have sensitive skin. We had very few sensitive skin offerings. Fragrance-free is another big trend. We didn't have nearly enough fragrance-free offerings. And as Damon mentioned, we've been able to use it to sell things into our retailers. It's gotten harder and harder because Walmart and Target, they've heard it all. Like, you know, it's very difficult for us to sell in our propositions. And our biggest blockbuster we brought over the last year, it's called Olay whips. They weren't interested in. They thought that's not a big idea. And what it is, it's a potent product that's as light as air. And they thought, well, that's a snooze, that's boring. But we had the data from SkinAdvisor that said this is what consumers, and especially millennial consumers, are looking for. And you know, we were able to use this data to convince them to promote Olay whips in a big way, and it's been our most successful launch in probably 10 years.
I think that's one of the things that was surprising to all of us when we kind of put the data into our system and looked at it, and just with, it ranges between 7 and 9. We changed them, number of questions that are asked. But just with that information, there's actually 215 million different possible combinations of answers.
Correct.
There's about 2 million regimens possible. So what we're doing is helping bring together which regimen matches with which possibility. But the thing that even surprised us all even further is in a week, most people, it's like 94% of the people are getting an individual regimen across the world. So most of the people that come into the product actually get something that nobody else in the world gets in that week.
Yes, I believe that's right. Like, I think only 10% or so have gotten the same recommendation as someone else.
In a week, which is pretty amazing.
Correct.
Across all of the products and all. So I want to switch a little bit. So we've talked a bit about some of the decisions and making AI and build and buy. What other things did you find that you wish you had done differently, changes internally or externally, that to help everybody else as they start out on their AI projects? How would you, what advice would you give?
Well, I would have had the right resources in place. Like, again, like this was a bunch of chemists and chemical engineers blindly finding our way through this. We didn't have the IT infrastructure when we started this journey that we have today. So we made a lot of mistakes that we're now having to go back and fix. So I wish we had known then what we know now, because we would have built it much differently, and it would not be so painful now when we're trying to like really maximize the data that we're generating with the tool, et cetera. The other thing I would do differently is, and we're still trying to do this differently, I wish we could do a better job of convincing our corporation that this is not just a marketing thing. Like, this is we consider it a digital product, just like any of the other products we sell, and we want to treat it that way. And it's not just something that marketers use to push the products, the flavor of the week or the latest launch kind of thing. We see this as a true product and service that we're offering the consumer that's as important as the products we're selling.
Yeah, just to build on that a little bit, one of the things I think we continue to have an opportunity with that we need to work on is building a culture of data around the product, and the product being SkinAdvisor, the product being Olay in general, and all the digital touch points. So as you would imagine, right, we're more of a traditional CPG type company that we do, we air TV commercials, we sell through Walmart and Target, and while there's certain subsets of data that there is a data culture around those types of data, the data that we get through SkinAdvisor, that we get through direct-to-consumer selling is a very different animal, and it requires a different type of skill set to handle and understand and be able to translate that into plans and actions and how we continue to drive more consumer engagement. So we are still on a journey for that, right? Because we're not structured for that. We're structured for Walmart. We're not structured for, hey, this person hit Olay.com and they got this regimen, but they didn't, they left everything in their cart. What do we do next, right? So we're working on that, and all of that is part of this really shifting to more performance marketing-ish kind of behavior from our marketing team and our CMK teams and our IT folks.
I think that's a really important point, because people often ask me a few things, because we only work with large enterprises, and they're surprised to hear large enterprises say, we don't have enough data. And I think that Olay SkinAdvisor, I'm so used to, Olay SkinAdvisor is such a great example of, you started with a small amount of data, but from that, you've grown a big amount of data, and it was very different data from what you had before. So making that kind of shift is really important, and the core that you started with was on your products, which you know best.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, it's a bunch of data, and there's a bunch of data that people don't have no idea what to do with, right? And so, we are on a journey of training people how to think about that data. But it's good data, and it's data that's allowing us to really get, so when you find an insight like the Olay Whips example, right? That's a massive insight that you use to sell into a customer, and then people start thinking, oh my goodness, we have like this big, giant set of data that we can use to build new products, to engage with retailers, to inform our commercial decisions on where should we be airing TV copy here, or should it be all digital there? So I think we're getting there, but it is very different, different data that we're not quite used to.
I think, Damon, one of the things that we've talked about as a challenge is when we're all grateful and that Olay SkinAdvisor have been such a great success for the company. In a company like yours, what often happens is people say, oh, well, we'll all have what they're having. And that often doesn't fit the consumer. So maybe if you want to talk about some of the challenges where people try to replicate and it's not really the right thing, and how you help guide, because I know you do, you're across all of beauty.
Yes.
How you help guide people as, okay, maybe you need an advisor, but it's not taking a picture and providing recommendations. There's lots of forms.
Yeah, it's so Olay SkinAdvisor became kind of the hot and sexy thing at P&G. Mark Pritchard, who's the CMO, talked about it a lot. He talks about it internally. He talks about it externally. That obviously drives a certain type of behavior where everybody wants to do a similar kind of thing. In beauty, now just take a step back though. In beauty, one of the things that is a challenge, at least in the categories that we play in, is consumer confusion on what to use, right? So if you go to the hair care side, right, we have 4+ hair care brands in North America, and it's not always clear to the consumer which product they should use when. And even if you pick a brand like Pantene, there's lots and lots and lots of variants of Pantene, which is the right variants for a consumer to use. So the higher order concept of helping to guide a consumer through a journey to figure out what is right for them is very attractive. The execution, however, gets way more interesting, right? Because Olay SkinAdvisor, Christi, she was being very nice, but we have years and years and years of experience of image analysis, and we have brands that do this as part of their business model, like SK2 in Asia, right? So we really know how to do that. In hair care, we don't. And so trying to apply the model directly and say, hey, take a selfie of your hair, and it somehow figures out how to then tell you what to use is a little bit more challenging, right? The technology is different. And so one of the things that we try to keep in front of folks, and then you say, and I need a personalization engine for this, we're like, well, wait a minute, do you have the right consumer questions? So we try to convince people to take a step back and say, hey, look, so what problem are you trying to solve for the consumer, right? So not for us, in theory, right? We shouldn't be solving P&G problems. We shouldn't be solving Pantene problems. We should be solving consumer problems. Now, if the consumer problem is to help them figure out what products they should use to make their hair, to have a beautiful hair day, right? Then how do you work back on that, and how do you be credible? Because I think that's the other piece that works very well for Olay SkinAdvisor and may not work so well in other places. How do you be credible in your recommendation?
I think this is your biggest strength, I'll be honest, working across customers and even things that we've heard here today. I think your approach to this from the customer perspective, which is how you do all of your products, that's a real core strength of P&G as a business. I mean, you have over 20 billion-dollar brands.
Right.
But they're not all built the same. And they have, this is exactly your point, Damon, which is, hey, that one needed the visual, but we didn't need that for hair. We had other things that were there. And figuring out, you know, for you all, what your strengths are, where is it that you have that kind of differentiation? And you may follow in that having an advisor, but you don't have to follow exactly.
And I think there's a bigger theme in beauty that we're trying to figure out how to address, which is personalization, right? So more and more consumers are expecting that whatever they use, whatever their engagement with brands is somehow a personalized experience, either personalized from how we talk to them, personalized for what products they use, and that's actually what's disrupting the beauty industry, right? I mean, so we have a bunch of brands that launch on the premise of personalization, and so we're trying to figure out how do we give the consumers that personalized experience with our suite of brands, or even new brands potentially, and we're on a bit of a learning journey on that as well.
Yeah, SkinAdvisor was really just our first toe in the water on personalization. It is personalization in that it helps you find the right products, but you still have to decide to buy it. You have to either put it in your cart or you have to go to Walmart and buy it. We have a new experiment going. It's called Olay Labs. It just launched in July, where we're taking it to the next level, where we have a SkinAdvisor-like tool, but then we actually put the regimen together for her out of the hundreds of technologies Olay has available. And we create a regimen for her and put it in a box, and it shows up on her doorstep. And this is more of a closed loop system. We get feedback from her on what's working and what's not, and then if she chooses to receive another box the next month, it might have different products in it, because we're learning from her over time what's working, and it's really just another step along the journey of offering her a truly personalized experience.
We love working with you guys on that,
yes,
and on SkinAdvisor as well. And the way you all look at it, and you hit the right word. A lot of times AI becomes one model that's deployed, and then people forget to refresh it. And having something that is constantly refreshed and taking that feedback and able to have that input is really important. I do want to give time for folks asking questions, so I think we can take a couple of quick questions, but I am told you need to raise your hand and wait for the mic. So you have to remember two things. It might be too much after lunch.
And no hard questions. They all have to be very easy questions. No, I didn't like, okay, I don't like the way he raised his hand.
Great. As I was listening to you guys,
very good. Yes,
we all used it. You know.
What was your skin age?
Much older than I am, so
It's the beard.
Hey,
I'm telling you, it's the
you
beard.
should have clicked. Okay, put regiment into basket. Buy.
Yes,
There you go. I'm here to
right
help,
there.
man.
I'm right on the edge of just putting in my cart. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I thought it was fascinating to hear a large CPG company as yourself is moving in this direction. And you mentioned too that all this data that you now have available from this new product is going to enable you to do things more like a performance marketing company. So yeah, that's a great example of I'm just curious what you have in place. If I don't buy my regimen right now, am I going to get retargeted on Facebook, or what do you guys have in place? What's coming?
You will not get retargeted on Facebook. You will get an email. If you went all the way through with your email, so if you left it in your cart, right, you'll get a message. I don't believe we have the Facebook retargeting going yet, but that's coming, right? But this is an interesting point. So our systems. So if you take a step back, right, we built Olay SkinAdvisor, and that gives you the personalized recommendation, right? We have Olay.com that's selling direct to consumer, right? We have our CRM systems that are built, P&G systems, mostly built for messages, like sending emails every 8 weeks, right? So we're trying to converge all of this change all at the same time. And by the way, this whole retargeting business, like, what are you talking about? I want to air this commercial on CBS, okay? So we're trying to, I mean, seriously, right? So we're trying to enact a sea change of things, right, to drive more performance marketing-ish behavior. Some of it is the technical pipes being connected. Some of it is culture. Some of it is policy, frankly, right? And so we're making progress. And so I'm glad you asked that question, because what I will tell you is probably towards the end of the year, you would get retargeted for by Facebook if you went on there, and because we're now trying to tap into our overall programmatic capability. We're doing more of our direct buys for Facebook, for media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that's one of the things, because Mark Pritchard, who Damon brought up before, has been outspoken about Facebook. So if you follow any of that, Facebook and the other social media platforms, and I think that's one of the exciting things is now you actually feel like you know more about the consumer directly from her through something like SkinAdvisor, and that's actually going to help some of that advertising be more authentic and effective.
Well, it creates a different opportunity, challenge, whatever you want to call it, which is now that you have access to this type of data and it's different, you actually have to have the organization operate differently in how they use the data and how they direct people to use the data, right? So the way we talk about it internally, and actually a little bit externally, Mark talks about it a lot, which is hands on a keyboard. So we are no longer we can no longer be in the business of just telling a media company, go buy me a bunch of media, and then you tell me, 3 months later whether or not it was effective. No. I actually, brand manager X, you go buy that media, right? And you should be able to optimize that buy, right, every hour, right? Because you have access to that data and you have access to that tool, which is a very different model for how we're used to operating.
Right, I give you guys a lot of credit for, enacting this sort of change inside such a large organization. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to take the second question because we're out of time, and I know they'll,
It's her fault. I told her to end earlier so we could take questions, but she didn't.
He blames me for everything. So it's amazing his kids get to school in the morning. But
Did they? Wait a minute. Did they get to school?
I did.
I made this morning?
Sure they
did you check?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
I checked. But no, thank you guys. And I echo. I mean, I've worked with P&G many times in my past, and for about 20 years actually, in different places. And the change you guys are driving now, I mean, you've always had amazing people, but the change that's being driven now and the awareness of it and the hands-on is really spectacular. So I'm proud to be working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.